The Endangered Species Act, Zachariah S. Wharton. EVSP 417, Conservation Biology, American Military University. The Endangered Species Act was passed by the 93rd Congress in 1973. It was drafted to replace the Endangered Species Conservation Act of 1969 with the stated purpose to provide a means whereby the ecosystems upon which endangered species and threatened species depend may be conserved and to provide for the conservation of such species. The Endangered Species Act underwent minor revisions in 1978 and 1982. The Secretary of the Interior through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Secretary of the Commerce Department through the National Marine Fisheries Service are responsible for adding and removing species from the list. The Endangered Species Act was a groundbreaking environmental law when passed. It was the first conservation law that provided protection to plants as well as taxonomic groups below the subspecies level. In addition, the ESA added pointed language that mandated all federal agencies to strictly adhere to a policy stating that their actions must not jeopardize listed species. The Endangered Species Act has great intentions that sometimes suffer from the verbiage in the original law. Some of the distinct positive aspects of the ESA include protection of critical habitat put in place by the 1978 revision, and the defining of the verb take to not only mean killing, but also harassing, harming, or modifying habitat to the extent that an animal may be harmed. In addition, the ESA provided a means for funds to be appropriated to the Fish and Wildlife Service and National Marine Fisheries Service in their conservation efforts. As with most legislation, the ESA has its flaws. There's a definite bias towards vertebrates and flowering plants. This is a twofold issue. First, there are more vertebrates and flowering plants than there are insects and invertebrates, which greatly outnumber all of their species groups. Secondly, the number of individuals left in a species tends to be greater for vertebrates when they are listed. On average, about 1,000 individuals are left of an animal species when it is listed. This is much higher than plants at 120 and 39 other species that were listed when 10 or less individuals were known to exist. Another point of contention that is closely related is the lack of species-specific population analysis, meaning that the reproduction rates, habitat loss, and other variables are not always considered as much as just a how many are left look at a given species. Another issue that should be more closely addressed in the ESA is the fact that states have the leeway to interpret the ESA and enforce standards in their own way, provided it is not deemed less stringent than that of the federal law. This can become an issue when a particular species with a wide habitat distribution travels across multiple jurisdictions. Finally, the data used in recovery plans is often incomplete or non-existent, possibly preventing the best possible solution from being met in any particular case. As you can see in this table, several key pieces of information are, as I mentioned, either missing or grossly incomplete. Glaring examples are population demographics and dynamics. How are we writing and revising multiple times recovery plans without knowing the survival rates or growth rates of the species in question? Seeing the percentage of plans that address these important factors below 10% is unacceptable and needs to be researched. Based on my research and the evidence presented here, I believe the Endangered Species Act has a definite need for revision. Specific things that should be addressed are gathering species-specific information that is needed to put together solid recovery plans, ensuring invertebrates and non-flowering plants are given proper consideration, standardizing the criteria for placing species on the threatened or endangered lists, and finding a balance between state and federal enforcement of regulations. While the groundwork is laid, a revision is long overdue. Biological and conservation sciences have come a long way since the latest revision, which took place 24 years ago. With climate change and increasing human impacts on the planet, there is work to be done.